When you have goals for your homeschool year, which I really hope that you do, in order to reach those goals, we actually have to take action on them and we actually have to do them. I say oftentimes when people are just worried about homeschooling, like just put your head down and do the thing. Do the thing that you need to do. And by doing it, it will become a habit and you'll become more self disciplined.
Welcome to Little by Little Homeschool Podcast, where you'll learn tips and strategies that will empower you to home educate your children. I'm Leigh Nguyen, a homeschool mom of over 12 years, which includes 2 graduates. When I started homeschooling, I was pretty much on my own and was desperate for encouragement and help. My mission is to be a source of encouragement and help to you. Whether you are just beginning your homeschool journey or you're deep into the homeschool lifestyle, Little by Little Homeschool wants to help you stay the course because all the time you are investing into your children is completely worth it. If you're ready to take your homeschool to new levels, keep listening.
Well, friend, here we are at the end of 2024. The year has flown by, and I really enjoy this time of the year between Christmas, where there's just so much buildup and so much to do, that in between Christmas and New Year's feels just like a little bit of downtime. When my kids are young, they would just have lots of time to play with all their new Christmas toys. We would maybe finish up watching the Christmas movies and cartoons and whatever we didn't get to before Christmas. And for you, probably also, this is a good time to reset. I know it's in the middle of the winter, it's dark. And so sometimes people are like, it's not really a great time to do that. But I like to use the time. I mean, it's just when the calendar is going to change, and let's look at the next year from a fresh perspective. I mentioned the past 2 weeks that I had something coming for you. And this is something that is just out of my heart of wanting to help you at this time to reset your homeschool. And so, what I have called it is Reimagine Your Homeschool for 2025. And it is live right now. If you go to littlebylittleHomeschool.com/homeschool reset, in 1 hour, you're going to reset and refresh your homeschool for the new year. It's a great time, I think, to do this right now. You have a little bit of time before you kind of get back into the rush of things. I really hope that you started off strong when you began at the end of the summer or the fall. But oftentimes we can start to lose some steam, and then things are so way different during the holiday season. Let's use this opportunity right now to get back on track or possibly to establish a new track. This is the time of the year where we are ready for a fresh start. After we have cleared out Christmas, our home and our days can feel fresh, and they can feel like there's a multitude of different opportunities and things that we can really just grasp onto, especially with our homeschool. This can be a time of the year when we can thrive, even though it's the winter. Let's do this for your homeschool. Let's have a fresh start for it. Let's get a fresh perspective and set some goals that you're actually going to attain this homeschool year. You're going to do it. You're going to set goals that are reasonable and that you can do. This resource, Reimagine Your Homeschool for 2025, is only available for 2 weeks. It's live and available for you right now up through January 10th of 2025. Once you actually get the resource, you can then go through it and take your time. I highly recommend doing it within these next 2 weeks. So you'll continue to have access to it. It just is not going to be available for you to join the program after January 10th. So again, you can go to littlebylittlehomeschool.com/homeschool reset and get all of the information about that. It's on the homepage of my website everywhere. And the link is obviously in the show notes for you. And today's episode is going to be just a little bit of a snippet, and there is an entire workbook to walk you through. It's not overwhelming at all, but today you're going to have to take some notes. But when you join Reimagine Your Homeschool, you don't have to take some scattered notes or anything. Everything is laid out for you. But when your days are a free-for-all, guess what happens? Chaos ensues. And that's okay for a short term and a short time in life. We're all going to have that. Maybe that was the holiday season for you. Maybe it's been this past week in between Christmas and New Year's. Maybe that's what it feels like. And you are ready to get back onto track, to get a routine, because everybody does better when there is a routine. Everybody's getting their sleep that they need. They're getting maybe some free time. They're getting some maybe quiet time alone. They are getting regular meals, and everybody is at a peak, hopefully, health wise, as far as mentally and emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Then we can thrive. We can get the things done. We can get those goals that we want to set. I've got some goals. I don't know if you do New Year's resolutions or not. I've done different things throughout the years. I don't have a problem with it because guess what? I'm reasonable about my New Year's resolutions. I'm not going to set something that I actually don't feel inspired by God to actually carry through with during that year. But just like you probably don't need a hyper scheduled day. I don't need a hyper scheduled day because that doesn't really work with kids, right? Hello. This isn't your first rodeo here with motherhood. You know that being hyper scheduled does not work. But having blocks of time for specific areas of your life can help keep you focused. I know that works for me. In order to be able to do this podcast, I have specific hours that I work on it. And when I sit down and work on it, guess what? I don't feel guilty because I have a specific time block for it. And I sit down, I do the thing. I also have time blocks, which we're going to talk about for homeschooling. I have time blocks for when I am preparing meals and running errands and getting chores done around the house. That way, I know things will get done because it is slotted out. It's slated out for my days and for my week. Therefore, I don't have to think about other things. So when you are doing your homeschool, you can just focus on the homeschool. You don't have to worry about the chores and the errands and all the other things that have to happen because you have it set a time block, and you can just get that done. So for me, for this podcast, recording this right now, I have zero guilt about not homeschooling right now because we have finished that for the day. I have zero guilt about getting dinner ready because I will do that in a little bit. I have the meat thawed out. I've got a plan for it, and it's going to happen. I have zero guilt about working out because I'm about to do that when I'm done with this. I've been switching around that time block a little bit, and that's been kind of fun. And again, these things can be reset for different seasons. So I know those things are going to happen. I just need to do what is in front of me at that time. So let's talk about those time blocks in context of a homeschool mom, because so that you can get everything done. And again, everything is what you determine it to be. And we'll talk more about what does everything even consist of and what's the important stuff over in Reimagine Your Homeschool. Your entire day can be summarized in 5 time blocks. That's what you tend to hear about with time blocks. But for the sake of homeschooling, we're just going to focus on the first 3 time blocks. Now, I want you to keep in mind that these time blocks can look different for different days of the week. Say you have a co op on Tuesday mornings, where your Tuesday time blocks are going to look slightly different than maybe Monday and Wednesday. Maybe you do a 4-day homeschool week, and Friday is either a field trip or errands, or it's just a day to catch up around the house. Well, Friday, your time blocks are going to look different than Monday through Thursday. You might even have 2 days that you actually are outside of the house. Maybe it's Monday and Wednesday. Well, that might look similar. And then Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday are going to look similar. So keep that in mind when you are creating these time blocks. You might have to create multiple versions of one time block depending upon the day. So I hope you're taking some notes here, okay? The first time block is going to be, we're going to call it, I'm not going to give it some big fancy name. It's just basically the time that you are awake, you wake up in the morning up until your homeschool time begins. Write down, just brainstorm, what is everything that needs to be accomplished during that time? Well, obviously, we need to get up. Maybe you have baby and your baby needs to be fed and changed and all those types of things. Maybe it's some chores. Dishwasher needs to be emptied. Obviously, everybody needs to eat. What do you want done during that time? Would you like everybody to get dressed, or are you a little bit more laid back and you don't really mind if everybody is in their pajamas most of the day? Do you want teeth brushed? Do you want beds made? What kind of habits are you trying to instill in your children, and what kind of routine and how much efficiency do you want to that time block? So what needs to be happen? Just brain dump. What are all the things you would like to have happen during that time of waking up until the homeschool day begins? Please do not write down 12 hours worth of stuff that needs to happen. Just what has to happen in the morning for you to feel like it was a successful morning. Maybe you like to get up a little bit earlier than your kids, and included in that is your time of Bible reading. Maybe you get breakfast just for yourself a little bit. You have a little bit of quiet time. Or maybe you just get up when the kids get up. There was many years that I did not get up before my kids, and I have zero guilt for that because, yeah, I probably could accomplish more, but I was tired. And so that's what I did. And that worked for us right then. But write it all down and then take a look at that. Just all of those scribbles of notes that you wrote down of things you want to accomplish in the morning. And then try to figure out what is the best order. Well, obviously, maybe breakfast before you brush your teeth or putting away your pajamas after you get dressed, so those kinds of things. Like, what is the best order? Is it better for you to, like me, right now in the season of life, it is best for me to get the dishwasher emptied right away because I go into making breakfast for my guys and I need all of those dishes and I don't want to be pulling them out. Again, in this season of life, it is just easier for me to empty the dishwasher first thing. When my kids were younger, that was included in things. And maybe while I was making breakfast, one of the kids would empty the dishwasher. And so we had just something different. So, what is the best order right now? Look at your kids, look at yourself right now this season, and maybe even just take it even more closer. Let's take a closer look at it and not just season of life, but just this season, just this winter. Just look at January, February, March, the next couple of months. What is the best order for that? And then number those. You can even write it out in a list of order, in the order that you want to do it. Hang it up on your refrigerator, just as a reminder. It takes time for things to become a habit. And so you don't necessarily need a specific time and say, well, at 7:44, we're going to empty the dishwasher, or you could say 7:45, but you don't need specific times. Write it down just in an order so it's more of a flow. It's more of a routine for that time between the time waking up, whether that's your waking up or you waking up with the kids, and the time that you're going to begin your homeschool lessons, which leads us into the second time block, which is your homeschool time block. Think to yourself, what time would we like to begin? Now, I'm not saying in some type of legalistic way, although there were some seasons where I had a hard and fast rule because there was a lot we needed to accomplish in the day just overall. And I knew that if I didn't have a time, I knew that it was going to be good for my kids to have that time to start. Now, it was a reasonable time. My family, my kids, we aren't necessarily night owls. We are more of morning people. And maybe not super early morning people. I never had my kids who were getting up at 5 in the morning, but when they went to bed at a reasonable time, therefore, we could get up at a reasonable time. And many years, and still now, 8:30 a.m. is the time. Now, I have just my high school 11th grader, and it's not as hard and fast. Sometimes he works late at night and he sleeps in a little bit, but it's just him, and I know that he'll pick up with things. He might even do some of his lessons, do some of the reading he needs to do while he's eating breakfast in the morning, and that's okay with me too. So for me, a reasonable time was 8:30 a.m., and there were years where it was a hard and fast rule because I had all three kids. I was running a blog. We had a lot of activities. I was running a ministry through my church. There was just a lot going on. And therefore, I needed to be a little bit more strict with it. I also, like I mentioned, wanted to teach them that there can be a time that we start at. There is a reasonable amount of time to get your breakfast and to get your bed made and to get dressed and to get your hair combed and to get your teeth brushed. And that was a reasonable time. And so be realistic then with that time. Be realistic with the goal of that time, and having a goal of a time will help you also to become disciplined. And when you have goals for your homeschool year, which I really hope that you do, in order to reach those goals, we actually have to take action on them and we actually have to do them. I say oftentimes when people are just worried about homeschooling, like just put your head down and do the thing. Do the thing that you need to do. And by doing it, it will become a habit and you'll become more self-disciplined in actually starting that habit. I have found the best way. Now, you can take my advice, but if you've not ever done this, I highly recommend trying this. Starting your homeschool time block off with morning time. Morning time, basket time, the Smith's family time, whatever you want to call it. Morning time is that time where you're going to do family learning. And so you can choose what that's going to look like. I've come up with a great system, and I will share more about that here in the future for our morning time. But it has been such a great time for us to learn together, for us to learn about one another, and for us to really dive into some subjects and topics that maybe I wouldn't necessarily make sure that we do. So, what you include in morning time is completely up to you. My kids really loved and appreciated when we would end our morning time with just a fun read aloud. And then at that point, we would then move into lessons. Most of those were individual lessons. They were the math, the language arts, and we would maybe do history and science together in morning time if it was years that we were doing things together. But when you are working on your homeschool time block, start with morning time, come up with your plan for that, and then write down all of the subjects that you want to accomplish during your homeschool time block. But be reasonable. You can list it out in an order if that helps you. There were many years that I would start off after morning time and everybody was required to start with math, or at least the ones that were maybe going to complain or push back a little bit more had to start with math. Now there was one of me and there was three of them, and therefore three different lessons to do. Some days it would be that someone would have a review and then one of the other ones or two of the other ones that would need lessons. I'm like, okay, you just work on your review and then I can do the lessons. And there's a lot of bouncing back and forth. But guess what? When you have that homeschool time block, you're not looking at the time or thinking about all the other things that you need to do. Don't worry about the dishes in the sink. Hopefully, you've maybe included that in your time block from the first in the morning. Possibly in the morning, you say, you know what? I want my dishes all cleared. I want the kitchen cleared out before we start our homeschool time block. I have done that. And it makes it so much better to move into lunchtime when the kitchen is clean. So make sure you get that done. Maybe it is the kids just kind of playing a little bit or doing some of their independent work, their lessons that they can do on their own so that you can get the kitchen cleared. Maybe they're helping out with that. Maybe it's a chore for one of the children to do that. But write down all the subjects and understand that you're going to be probably bouncing around a bit. And this is your focus right now. Homeschool is your part-time slash full-time job. It is a focus. Needs to be a priority and make it a priority during the homeschool time block. And therefore, you won't feel guilty about not making it a priority. You won't have the mom guilt later on. It's like, oh, I really should have done that math lesson. Oh, they're really struggling with this subject or they're having a hard time reading. But if I would just devote some time, they'd be able to read a little bit better. This is the time to do it. This is the time to stay focused and to put your head down and just to do the thing. So write down the subjects and that you want to do and feel free to put them in an order if that's going to help you, but be flexible, knowing that order might change. Choose an end time. Typically that's around lunch. Maybe for you it's 11:30 a.m., maybe it's 12 noon, maybe it's 12:30 p.m. Maybe you guys don't eat breakfast until 8:30, 9 o'clock, so therefore maybe 1 o'clock is lunch. That's okay. Pick a time to end that homeschool time block. My goal was always noon, and I would say that was the time. I put my head down. We did the lessons that we needed to do during that morning time block, and if they dilly-dallied, if they didn't get their independent lessons done during that time, then they would find themselves in the afternoon having to work on those lessons. But they would have maybe missed out on some of mom's lessons because they were maybe fooling around and stuff. And then we might have to double up the next day. And they didn't like that. So therefore, then they would say focus the following day and making sure that they can get things done. And if you are feeling frustrated or confused or just not sure, or you've never really thought about what is my priority right now? What are my goals? We're going to discuss that together in Reimagine Your Homeschool for 2025. So be sure to go head over there because I want you to have a successful rest of your homeschool year. You started off with a bang, and at this point, you have a great opportunity to be able to reset and refresh that. Let's jump into the third time block of the day, and it's just the afternoon. It's from the time of lunch, beginning of lunch, until dinner. And this is the largest time block. It could last quite a long time. It could be from noon till maybe you don't eat dinner till 6, from noon to 6. And so there is a large time block here. Maybe there are some lessons that need to happen. Maybe you have a baby, and so therefore some of the lessons that you would like to do in the morning just don't happen. So you have to squeeze them into the afternoon while the baby naps. Or maybe there's just some lessons that are dangling or over that you didn't get to. But I really hope that you've been able to get those accomplished in the homeschool time block. It's just staying focused and getting it done. Food is going to be a big thing in this time block. You've got lunch, possibly some snacks, and you've got dinner in that time. Maybe this is a time for running errands. Maybe it's a time for naps for babies or younger kids, or maybe everybody to have a little bit of rest time, and maybe it's a nap time for you as well. Maybe it's free play time. Maybe it's time to go outside. Maybe it's time to go on an adventure outside. Maybe it is sometime that they just get some screen time. Maybe it's a time to get some chores done. And again, this can look different for different days. Maybe on the day that you have a co-op, the afternoon looks more like getting chores done or taking lots of naps because everybody is worn out from that. So that is the afternoon time block and setting yourself up for the evening then. Let's just focus on this homeschool year. And maybe, like I mentioned, just focus on the winter because we can have different activities. Maybe you live in a place that's really snowy, and this time of the year, like us, skiing is a focus. Maybe it's other winter activities, and therefore life kind of revolves a little bit around that. And just knowing that come in the spring, there could be some changes for that. So just even focus on these next couple of months, but just also having some overall goals you want to reach. Now, if time blocking is new to you, please give it some time. It is meant to give you freedom. It is meant to free your brain to just focus on what's in front of you. As homeschool moms, we just have so much coming at us from all different directions all the time. And sometimes you can feel like, I don't know how to focus on anything anymore. But when you have things time blocked out, you know exactly what needs to be accomplished right then and right there. And you don't have to feel guilty about what's not being accomplished because you know that you will get to it. And I promise that we will talk more about this in Reimagine Your Homeschool for 2025, as well as what are those goals? How do you accomplish those? And how do you actually even create those? Guess what? It depends upon your family. And so that's a very key integral part. And your husband and you, and just all the dynamics that you guys bring to the family. And just, there's just so many great things. So I encourage you to go over and check it out, littlebylittlehomeschool.com/homeschool reset. The link is in the show notes as well. But just put a bug in your ear. It is only available for this week and next week, so 2 weeks total. So January 10th, 2025, I encourage you to grab it now so you have some time these next couple of days before you start back up with your homeschool year to give it a reset and a refresh so you can hit the ground running.
Thank you for listening, friend. I'd love to connect with you more. You can find social media links in the show notes and share this episode with a friend who could use a boost to her homeschool. See you back here real soon.